Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third session of the second day. I'm so excited for this session, Greek life and diabetes. So we'll wait a couple, maybe one other minute to let more people trickle in, and then I'll pass it off to Shay, who will be the moderator for today. So welcome, everyone. And if y'all have any questions throughout the session today, just drop in the chat and Shay and the panelists will get to that throughout the session.
That's right. You ready for me, Casey?
Yeah, go for it. Take it off.
Awesome. Well, as Casey said, I'm Shay Webb. I've had diabetes for the last 15 years as of today. Today's my diaversary. So I'm super excited to be doing this panel with you all on such a special day as this. And we have participants and panelists from organizations such as myself from Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Sigma Gamma Rho, Delta Sigma Theta, and Alpha Phi Alpha. If I missed anyone, please let me know. We are going to go over a few topics and a few questions about Greek life and about diabetes. So feel free, this is an open conversation. We just want to give you a few nuggets of knowledge about our experiences. Without further ado, I'm going to let everyone else introduce themselves. And I will look on my screen and I'll go to my left and start with Don.
Hey everyone, I am Don. I have been living with diabetes for about 19 years now. I was diagnosed in 2002. I'm at the age of 12. I am a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the oldest and the coldest. Yeah, I went to Lincoln University for undergrad. I got my master's from Academy of Art University, and I'm currently getting my PhD from Liberty University in communication. And happy to be here. Excited to hear what everyone got to say and answer questions and enjoy it.
All right. Well, I guess we'll keep that order going then and go to Cameron.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cameron Hall, and I am also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I crossed Fall 10 at the Utah chapter of the University of Montevallo, and I am a type 1 diabetic. I have lived with diabetes for, it will be 24 years in January. That's coming quickly for almost 2/3 of my life living with this disease. But, and yes, I am glad to be here today with everyone, and I'm excited for the conversation that we'll have.
All right, next we'll have Anisha.
Hi, my name is Anisha. I'm part of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I was diagnosed in the 4th grade, type 1 diabetic, and I'm just excited to be here.
Welcome, Anisha. Next, we're going to have Felisa.
Hello, everyone. I'm Felisa DeRose. I'm really excited to be here. I'm a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. I became a member as an undergrad at Florida State University. And as a grad chapter member, I am a charter member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated in Dubai. I'm one of the 30 women who charted a chapter there. And what else? I'm from Florida. I've lived in 3 countries. I'm really excited to be here today, and I can't wait for the conversation to get started.
You go, Sarah. You go. All right, we are going to go to Lexi.
Hi guys, I'm Lexi. I live in Texas. I've lived with type 1 diabetes for I think 16 years now, 15 or 16 years. I'm a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. I crossed in fall 15 at the University of Texas at San Antonio, and I'm also a charter member of the TAMU chapter, and I'm just excited to be here.
Thanks, Lexi. Last but not least, we have Sarah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Shadow. I am from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I am a Spring 20 member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated into the Alpha Lambda chapter at Texas Southern University, and now I'm in Gamma Phi Sigma. I graduated May 14th of this year with chemistry and mathematics. And now I am at Alabama State University currently for my grad program, and it's in forensic science. I was diagnosed June 7, 2007 with type 1 diabetes. And I guess a little fun fact, not a fun fact, I'm the only grandchild in my family that has it. No one on my dad's side has it. On my mom's side, I'm the only grandchild. And it's only 3 of us. So my grandmother, my uncle, and me. So it's very rare. And it's a unique case. We've been told it's a unique case. So of course, everybody's a carrier, but for me to be the only grandchild, they're very interested in that. So, yeah.
Awesome. And we may be having one more join us very soon. But in the meantime, I will do my official introduction. As I said, I'm Shay. I'm from Wilmington, North Carolina, and I am a part of the Zeta Rho Zeta chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated currently, but I crossed Pi Nu at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, spring of 2018. I have type 1 diabetes, and I also have had diabetes for 15 years. But a fun fact about me that I wish I could show you all on screen is that I can wiggle my ears without touching them. And it is super weird. It is super dope, but it's something weird about me and I love it. So without further ado, I don't see anyone else. We can get everything kicked off. Does anyone have anything else to add? All right, let's kick it. Let's get it popping. All right. So what was life like what was college like with diabetes?
Does anyone? Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'll start. For me, college life, it was crazy because a lot of people know that I didn't tell people for a long time. And so during the part of my college life, that's when I had to eventually start telling people because I had like a few episodes in college. And yeah, it was kind of like behind closed doors. It's like I would do insulin injections and like in my room, and I wouldn't do no more insulin until I got back to my room. And this was before I had to pump, before I had to CGM. So I'm just walking around all day long with high blood sugars and just not caring for life, honestly. And so I had to like let people know and basically do what I had to do, take better care of myself. But for college, for me, diabetes was slow. It was not in the forefront at all.
I would agree. For me, I not only am I a part of Delta Sigma Theta, I was also a student athlete. So I thought diabetes kind of I didn't want people to think it was like an excuse for me to like, if I had a low blood sugar, I needed to like stop the workouts. I didn't want people to see like me as weak or like taking advantage. So I did kind of, for lack of better words, hide my diabetes. And I definitely was very shy about telling people that I was a diabetic because, they tend to be a little bit overbearing and over controlling. And I was not fully accepting of my diabetes. So I think college really was the turning point for me in my acceptance and letting people know and not being, ashamed of letting people know like, hey, I need to stop. I need some Skittles, or hey, I need to take a break. I'm not feeling good, so that was a really big step for me.
Lexi, I saw you were trying to speak.
Yeah, I was a lot like Don. Nobody really knew that I was diabetic for quite a while. And it was mostly because I've been diabetic since I was 10 and I'm so used to, which means it's 17 years. Okay, 17 years. But I'm so used to just doing it all on my own. I didn't think that nobody else needed to know. It's my burden, like, it's fine. And then I had a friend, a childhood friend actually from diabetes camp that passed away in her sleep from a low blood sugar. And that's when I was like, okay, I really gotta like start telling people about this because if something happens, I can't help myself if I'm passed out, But that didn't come to be until like the end of my sophomore year. So like my first year and a half of college, I mean, pretty much my mom, would call me and check on me, but nobody else really knew that I had diabetes.
So
I'd say
I'm
it's
gonna
very similar for, okay, go ahead, Shay.
go ahead, Cameron. We'll do you, and then we'll go to a follow-up of all your responses.
I was going to say it was very similar for me. And some of you have heard my story, but I was somewhat depressed about diabetes and burnt out with diabetes in college. And so it was extraordinarily tough to think about diabetes on top of everything else that I did in my undergrad experience. I was in SGA, I was president of the Black Student Union, president of my fraternity chapter, had a 20-hour-a-week job on top of the 10 hours of office hours that I had to do in student government. And so I was moving all the time, and diabetes was never, and that's on top of social life, right? Because there's a whole social life component of a traditional undergrad experience that I had. And so diabetes was definitely on the back burner for me until probably my senior years when I finally started to acknowledge it. And it was not until after I had an episode at a fraternity event that it was sort of the catalyst, and ended up having to see one of the school counselors to help me get back on track with my mental health and wanting to actually start taking care and being a better advocate for my diabetes in a lot of spaces. And so it wasn't until I was almost about to step out of the door and graduate before diabetes became even a thing for me, because similar to what Lexi was saying, I had lived with diabetes since I was 9 years old, having gone from elementary school to middle school to high school, where people were always on my back about it. And then getting to college was definitely not where I wanted to be. So diabetes was something that was literally just a few glucose tabs in my backpack throughout freshman, sophomore, and junior year until I got to midway through senior year.
And for me, I was diagnosed as an adult actually the next semester after getting my PhD. So I just came out of college, but I was a professor. So it was like my first year as a professor. And I was also the undergraduate chapter advisor. But I do want to reflect upon my undergraduate experience when I first learned about diabetes in a young person. Throughout this talk, you may hear two names that are very dear to me, Homer and Sharonda. Homer was my fraternity brother in undergraduate, and Sharonda was my fraternity sister in graduate school. But in undergraduate, we had no idea how to help our brother Homer with his diabetes. It was something he really kept kind of to himself. And then when I was diagnosed just after graduate school, I thought about what I learned from both of them. And I think about them both dearly. They both passed away. And I just always hold the light for my fraternity brother Homer, undergraduate, who we had no idea how to help. And my sorority sister Sharonda in graduate school, who also we had no idea how to help her.
There.
Yes, I wasn't going to share, but when I was hearing everybody's responses, I was like, I don't know, my experience was kind of different. It was kind of normal for me. Like, I'm very well known at PSC. So when I first got there, like, I'm very social and everything. If we're eating, I'm going to whip out my insulin right there and take my insulin. Like, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I'm a diabetic. If we're out and my blood sugar's low, I'll be like, oh, hold on, I need to go get some juice. So everybody knew around me because I made it known. I wasn't going to keep it a secret. None of that, no, because this is very important to me and I'm very fragile. Like, I don't drink because I'm a diabetic, because I wasn't compliant growing up. So it's like, I don't have time for my blood sugars to be up and down, up and down, up and down. Like, my A1C is perfect. I don't want to mess that up. So yeah, it was pretty normal for me. Like, all of my friends know, like my sisters, they know, like, so it wasn't like, hard or anything. I was quiet. Like, there be some times where I'm asking a friend, I said, do you mind injecting me with my insulin? They'll be like, okay. So like for me, it was pretty normal and everything, nothing unusual or anything like that.
And thank you all for your responses. This has been amazing. We actually have one more organization joining. We have Yamina Lewis of Alpha Kappa Alpha, if she would like to welcome herself. And that means now that we have all four of us, we have each of the Divine Nine sororities on the call. So cool.
Okay. Hi. As I'm not waking up obviously perfectly on time. Hi, I'm Yamina. What were the questions that I'm gonna look at?
You can just introduce yourself.
Okay, cool. Hi. So I've been diagnosed since I was about 9 years old. Diabetes is like the only time it ever got in my way was like with sports a little bit, but then after that, it was just like the sport's either going to allow it or they don't. And then 9 times out of 10, they did go ahead and acknowledge that I was a diabetic. So we just wrapped up my pump and it's been cool sailing ever since. But yes, I am part of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, founded J15 1908. Where are we? I'm from, I guess, Jacksonville-ish or Sneedsbury, North Carolina at this point in time in life. And that's what we're gonna go with.
Yeah. All right. So let's actually jump into the comment box and then we can get back to our questions. So it looks like Cassandra Henderson asks, do you think availability of newer diabetes technology, CGM or pumps, will make it less a barrier for college students living with diabetes? Funny, she should ask that. I'm actually kind of technically doing my research on something like that, but we can get into that later. But I think personally, technology for me helped me a lot in college because I was always that tech nerd growing up. So once I actually had it and I didn't have to be obvious, like, okay, I'm pulling out my pen. It's more so I'm on my phone, which actually, I didn't get in trouble with it for professors, but I always made it like a big thing at the beginning of the year. If you see me with this device, I'm not ignoring you. This is not my phone. I am not texting back. This is my insulin pump. Like, this is what it looks like. This is what it does. And if it beeps off in class, it's not a siren. It's not a fire alarm, because I have had teachers think it's a fire alarm before. So I think that's what I said. But I think technology has its perks for diabetes in college, but it also boils down to the person and if they like technology.
I agree. I think to me, and I always say this, but a CGM is pretty much just as important as insulin. There's no way that you can know what your body is doing if you're doing the recommended prick your finger 4 times a day. That's complete BS. There's no way to live a fulfilled, healthy life with that little bit of information. So in college, when you're just now probably drinking, some people drink in high school, but I didn't start drinking until college. You know, when you're trying all these new things and these new activities and you're far away from family, maybe you're in a new state where there's different weather. If you have a CGM where you can see everything that's happening throughout the day, how different foods are affecting you, how alcohol is affecting you, you know, you can make better decisions. And for me, because like I said, I had a friend that passed away and I lived with really, I mean, I still kind of have anxiety of low blood sugars, and just having the peace of mind of knowing that something is constantly monitoring my glucose. And then also my mom, you know, she could see it whenever I finally got a CGM. She could see my blood sugars. Like it's just the peace of mind that you have. I mean, of course, diabetes is always going to be annoying and in the back of your mind, but you can focus a little bit more on the moment and enjoying your college experience. So I think technology is amazing, and pumps are awesome too, but I had a smart insulin pen for a while and I actually loved it more than my insulin pump. I hated tubing. So I got off of an insulin pump for a while, and then that's when I found my tubeless pump. But yeah, I think technology is amazing and it's really changing the game in all aspects of life, not just college life, but definitely college.
I would say yes and no. I did have a pump in college and it helped a lot to maintain a lot of things. But of course, way back then, it was nothing more than an insulin pump that just delivered a constant stream of basal, and you can bolus from it. And you had to check your blood sugars 8 times per day is what the recommendation was back then, which I can tell you I was not doing. I probably checked it once in the morning and once before bed, and that was about it. So yes, it would have helped me to have a better understanding of what my numbers are. Where I think where I would have shied away from where technology is today is I probably would not have wanted my parents to be as involved in my numbers as they are today. Like now that I live alone in a state far away from home, yeah, my mom has access to my numbers in case something goes wrong, right? But in college, when you're experimenting with things, you're trying to figure out who you are, you know that beer is going to make your blood sugar go up, or alcohol might do these things, because that's the time when you are really engaging in, or some typical college students are really engaging in that activity. I probably would not have wanted my parents that deep, and that's me selfishly, in my numbers during that time frame, just because of some of the activities that a typical college student would engage in during that time.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in. So technology, using the technology for me, I think it was the only time when I actually like needed it, like obviously it's a great thing to have, was when I broke my leg. And I'm that type of person, if you try to prick me when I'm unconscious, I'm gonna wake up instantly. So I have to do it. I just don't like people trying to poke my finger. And my mom, she was the only person who like had it. But the technology using the Bluetooth, I personally still do not like it, only because it drained out my phone. I don't know, they've probably fixed the glitches since then, but my phone dies a lot, so why have a whole nother device? I like having it separately. But I kind of got that scare factor from my doctor of, don't drink, it's gonna make you think your blood sugar is gonna drop and you're just gonna be in a coma. So that just kind of scared me away from it. Obviously now, like I'll drink a little bit of it, but it's still very so much of a small amount. It's just like, you know what, my blood sugar is good right now. We're not even gonna try to test the limits, even though I do have my Freestyle Libre. Am I wearing it right now? No, I am not. I need to put one on, but sometimes it's weird because I just like, you know what, my skin needs a break. It already has a whole nother big old sticky device on it right now. And then I just want my skin to be like, oh, there's nothing on me. Let me just relax for a little bit, put it back on, and everything's okay. So that's me.
For me, I think the pump and the technology is great, but for me, I went to school out of state. And so that was just really hard getting all the things that I needed to have like complete function of like my CGM and my pump. So that created like a barrier for me. And I eventually had to transition back to injections because it was a lot easier to get that than to get all the supplies. So that was just one thing. And then I currently am on the pump now. I think it's a great use of technology. I wish I would have been able to use it more in college, just because I was a student athlete and I was involved in my sorority and I had a very active lifestyle. So to be able to know my blood sugars and to give my parents like an ease at mind at times during college may have been a little bit easier on them. But you know, you'll live and you'll learn.
All right. Anyone else want to add anything before we jump to the next question? All right. Okay, the next question is actually from Liz. And she asked, were accommodations made available when you were pledging?
I can start. Yeah, kind of. I'll just say that most of the members of my organization had stuff available if there was ever some type of emergency. Like everybody had juice on deck, everybody had like crackers and stuff whenever we were doing different things. And if I really needed it, I could get it. So
Yeah, I agree with that statement. Even being in a different organization, I feel like going through, they would make accommodations, and I feel like I might be in a different situation than most of the members on here because I was a solo. And that means I joined my organization by myself. Like my line was me. So my profiles or the people who are over me, like my older sisters, they really looked out in a way of, okay, are you ready for tonight? Do you feel well enough? Do we need to change some stuff around? And more so the accommodations during the whole process, it was more so getting ready for that presentation show. Because it's like, for those of you who don't know how the presentation show works, that's basically the time you're coming out to the public that you are a member of this organization, you're claiming who you are, and you're giving information, you are doing different cultural acts to just express your appreciation for the org. But in my case, I would be up there. And what I was wearing, it was kind of hard to actually put my pump somewhere because I was wearing a dress. And this was during a time where we really didn't have all this other accessories that were available. And I also wasn't on my Omnipod yet. So I was still tubed. So it was very easy to, fall or, snag. So it was more of a thing like, okay, once this comes up, do we have enough time? Are you allowed to have it this amount of time? Are you comfortable? And just working around things that, because there's a lot of different moving parts that goes into the process, and just figuring out what accommodations are needed for each part. I think that's something, rather than in the middle of the process to iron out, that's something that needs to be brought up at the beginning to let them know, okay, I love this org, I've gotten this far, I want to let you know that I'm a type 1 or I'm a person with diabetes, and this might happen if I, get weak or if I fall out. Here is the emergency protocol. Here's my glucagon kit. Find me juice. This is what's going on. So it's not like a situation where an emergency happens, they're like, my goodness, what did we do? You didn't do anything.
I would say yes and no as well. I think part of, and this is back to what I was talking about earlier too, I didn't want diabetes to be a part of my identity. And so if any of you have seen, and I'm going to make the reference since I don't know if anyone else will throughout this chat, but if you've seen the movie School Days, Spike Lee's movie School Days, you see the pledge line, and you know that one of the things about the pledging process, at least back then, was that there was a sense of uniformity amongst the line, right? Everyone in that fictional fraternity had a sense of uniformity. And so I wanted to comply with that sense of uniformity. And so probably against better judgment, I would take off my pump during certain activities. And my Dean of Pledges knew where I kept it in case there was an emergency. My associate Dean of Pledges knew where I kept my glucagon and my glucose just in case things did arise. But for the most part, it was just like I was saying earlier, it wasn't something that I was probably thinking through in the best terms as a college student, as far as trying to even ask for what an accommodation would be for diabetes at that time, right? And so, I made sure that people knew where stuff was in case I needed it. The people who I needed to know knew those things. But for me, it was about trying to maintain the sense of normalcy that I needed as a person, and in the process to be a member of, to feel like I was a full member of my line.
I want to mimic off of Cameron as well. I agree like 100% what he was saying, like just all about being like just like one. And whereas though you don't want to, it's like you're trying to basically hold yourself up just to make sure like you can do it. Cause like for myself, like my brothers, they knew where everything was at, but it was like, I always made sure it's like, whenever something occurred, I'm like, let me make sure I'm together first. It's just like, I got myself together first, and my brothers made sure that hours together as well too. So it was like they would ask me stuff like, "You all right?" I'm good. It's just like you always trying to get to that finish line. So just trying to be one and not trying to let nothing tie you down. I think Cameron's playing the best.
I would like to second, third, I guess, Dawn seconded Cameron's point, because really you have to think about the mentality of people wanting to join the Divine Nine, right? We want to be uniform. We want to be a part of our illustrious organizations. And so sometimes even if accommodations are there, people will choose not to take them, whether that's accommodations with diabetes, accommodations with anything else. As an advisor of an undergraduate chapter, and also a person with diabetes at the time, clearly I came in with like, if y'all need any accommodations, please let me know, because it's my job to make sure that they are provided. And this was at Fayetteville State University in North Carolina at the time. And many people just said, no, they don't want to be viewed weak. They don't want to, take the accommodations. And I totally know what that's like. I mean, I'm old school. I became a Zeta in '99, right? Probably the oldest one on the panel, OG. So I know what it's like to, like I got bad knees. My left knee just don't get along. But when it comes to stepping, oh, you better believe I wrapped that knee up, honey. It was like, I don't need no accommodations for this left knee. I'm about to get this stepping right. And so when you ask that question, you also have to think about those accommodations can be there, but someone may choose also not in certain moments to even take advantage of them.
So I'm a spring 21, which we all know that's prime COVID. So everyone was pretty much just like, are you healthy? Are you healthy? And because I went to a very small PWI, everyone just knew I had type 1 diabetes, but I never really cared to give, I guess, extra glucagons and stuff away to people because I always carried my stuff. And even now, I walk everywhere, go everywhere with a bag or a backpack and in my car. And if I'm ever going out places, I volunteer myself to drive because I know that I have all of my medical devices in there. But yeah, my line, they just know. No one's ever like had anything. I think some of them, they just have food and I'll just say, hey, I'm a diabetic. They're like, do you want food? Sure, I will gladly take it. Is your blood sugar low? It is in the process of dropping. I'm just hungry. Just give it to me now. So that's yeah, that's been my life with it. Or yeah, that's been my accommodations for it because no one's really had to worry so much because health has been a big issue in these recent years.
Okay, well, here's a follow-up. We're talking about how is it during pledging, but what about once you get in the org? Do you feel that your brothers and sisters are supportive of you?
1,000%. Like, joining Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated has been the best decision of my life. And I say that all my sisters will have my back 1,000%. And they will probably catch a low blood sugar before I even catch a low blood sugar. They'll be like, Niche, hey, you know what? You're getting a little feisty now. Slow down, slow your roll. Go sit down, go eat some candy. Here's a juice box or something. So I would say after the org or after I crossed and being a part of my org, it has been just, I've had a lot of support, and actually it's helped me become a lot more accepting of my diabetes because I feel not a burden on people. A lot of the times as a diabetic, people tend to worry about you, and I don't like all that attention. I'm grown, I'm living my life. Like, I'm not trying to judge you, so you don't really judge me. But I appreciate the fact that you're taking care of me and that you're looking out for me. So I enjoy that aspect now.
I would echo exactly the same. My brothers were 100% supportive, particularly my tail ape, who is the 5 on my line, has been extremely supportive. He's my best friend today, and similar to what Anisha was saying, if I'm going low, he knows it before it's happening because he can sense the change in my mood. If I'm going high and I'm grumpy, my frat brothers and my line brothers knew before anything was happening after the fact. And so once we had gone through the process and gotten to know each other and were solidified as one, of course they picked up on those things and they knew each other. And I'm glad I had that network to lean on.
I mean, I can honestly say I can again third all of you, because my sorority sisters, especially my pro-fights, they were up on it. And sometimes it wasn't a thing that they could tell, like if something was going on. It would be situations like, for example, a little history of Zeta is that we are the first and the only constitutionally bound to a fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma. And yes, we are very proud. But there was one particular, we were actually at our brother's, their presentation show when they were bringing in new members, and my blood sugar was dropping, but everyone was kind of scattered. They didn't really know, but my profiles were like, oh my goodness, there's going to be a reception. So there's going to be punch there. We have to go make sure it's okay for Shay to drink it. And I didn't know about any of this. So I'm just minding my own business looking for sugar. And they speed over to the reception room and they try the punch. They're like, no, it's too sweet. Keep this away from her. She can't drink this. So I walk in and they're talking and I'm getting punched. They're like, put that down. It's too sweet. I'm like, no, I need this. I'm dropping really fast. So sometimes it's more so it's like they'll put things in order for you before you get to situations just because they know and they care about you. And they know that you're going to need this, or she's not going to be able to have this. What else do you have? How can we plan this event so we can accommodate her? Because honestly, when you join these orgs, you become a family. And it's not just, you know, Zeta Sigma or Zeta Zeta. It's all of us together because we're all under one umbrella and we understand what each other are going through. And also, especially if you have diabetes, it's just another fraternal connection, because if I meet someone with type 1 or just diabetes in general, I'm like, okay, you get it. And just having that opportunity to educate my brothers or my sisters, it's even more fun. And because they're so receptive, I'm especially more open to do it.
I'll say the same as well. For me, with like my brothers, it was like once it was done, it was just love. It was just like people made sure I had what I had, and just even for like any just like the organization, it was like I never forget when I first moved to San Francisco. I had no insurance, and you know, insurance is tough, and so I went to apply for some insurance, and this lady was there. I never forget, she's a Delta. And she seen my Alpha keychain. She's like, Alpha. I said, yeah. And we was talking for a minute. And she was like, you make too much to get like welfare insurance, basically. She said, I'm going to approve it, but you got 1 month to get everything you need. And she's looked out for me. And it was just like, just that initial response, I think just like come across all the organizations, when you meet someone who's like diabetic, you know, it's like, we all just look out for one another. It's like, we're not going to watch each other fail. So that we all have like our little beef and we the best in the yard and stuff like that. But when it comes together, it's just that everybody's one and no one wants to see nobody fail. That's the one thing I love about being a member of the Honor.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the question was framed like how helpful are our individual organizations, but when you're in the Divine Nine, you're in the Divine Nine. When I did grad school at Penn State, we didn't have a Zeta chapter close, and the Deltas just took care of me. And so, yeah, I think each of us can go down the line where it was another member of the Divine Nine that was like right there for them, especially when you move and you're traveling. It allows you an opportunity to get to know people, have a kind of instant family take care of you. Specifically the chapter that we formed in Dubai, once they knew about my diabetes advocacy, we worked it out where every year I did a program sponsored through our local chapter for people in Dubai and Abu Dhabi to learn about diabetes, because it was something that many of us in the chapter were touched by. Like I shared with you all before, I just have a personal kind of calling to educate people based upon just my experience with Homer and Sharonda. And so that chapter proceeded to have annual diabetes awareness events. Even after I left, I would do them virtually. So the support is there from the chapters and also all of the Divine Nine.
Okay, well, we talk about college a lot, but what about being D9 and having diabetes in the workplace? What are your experiences?
Oh, I would answer that. So, especially in the workplace, like, kind of got annoying because, when we, fill out the application, they ask if you have a disability. Diabetes is on there. So, I'm thinking as soon as I fill out the application, you already know that I have some type of disability. So it's like, when I start the job and everything, this is before I started mentioning it, because it was like, okay, it's getting a little too much. And one thing about me, I'm very vocal, like in my practice, and my blood sugar's low, I need to go take that. Like, we're not gonna go back and forth. This is my life right here. So yeah, it'll be like, let me say a previous job I was working at, and like my blood sugar got really low. And like I told my manager or something, and they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, go take care of that, go take care of that. Or there's a time where like we were so busy, and this is when I worked at HEB in Texas. Love the job. We were so busy that day, and I asked if I could go to my car real quickly to go drink some oranges real quickly. And I don't want to say she had the audacity to say, but she was like, oh no, like, you mind if you just stay here for 5 more minutes? And I said, no, my blood sugar is low. I'm too weak right now we're moving constantly. It's just gonna bring it down low. She was like, oh, I apologize. Go do that. So after that, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna start, if I get a new job, I'm gonna start vocaling it at my interview. Hello, I am a type 1 diabetic. But one thing also started doing was getting accommodations at work. So I know like you have to be there for a certain amount of time, but like for me, they'll like pave the way, I guess. So I'll have to like call a specific number and I'll be like accommodated, like how I'm accommodated at all my schools and all my universities. So yeah, so having diabetes in the workplace could be annoying sometimes, especially like if I'm on a run and my blood sugar gets low right there and then, and it's like, okay, it's not good for me to do that, but I'm just like, okay, we're really busy. Can I stop right now to go buy something, or should I continue and then just wait? Even my blood sugar is high, and because I have a Dexcom G6. So even if my blood sugar is high, I'm like, okay, should I finish this run or should I stop? Because I was like, I don't want to get in trouble. I want to make sure this is complete. I don't want us to be delayed because of me. At the end of the day, my life is way more important right now. So it's just like, either I continue this run and my blood sugar gets really high, that affects me in the long run, or this doesn't get done and it affects customers not getting their groceries. But it's just like, at the end of the day, I want to live. I want to be able to complete my future goals and all of that. So yeah.
I think this is an interesting question because it's really tied to the amount of privilege that you have with your career and where you are in your position. And if you had asked me this question probably when I was in my 20s, and now that I'm approaching mid-30s, I have different answers, right? But at the place where I am now in my career, I'm at a place where I can ask that at the beginning of an interview process. I can, if I'm going out, when they take me to lunch for my interview, I can pull out my insulin pump, let them know, hey, I'm giving insulin, I'm a type 1 diabetic, I'm doing this. And depending on the response I get will determine if I choose to move forward with that interview at all, period. And so you can have those conversations up front, depending on what level you are and what type of industry you work in and what level of privilege you have in those spaces. But when I worked in an hourly job, when I was in my teens and in my 20s, I didn't have that level of privilege. I tried to take off once because I was sick, and my boss berated me over a phone call, but I needed to take care of myself. And so I wasn't going to come in until I can get my blood sugar above 50, right? At least 75. And so those things really determine on the amount of privilege that you have in your career and the space that you work in. Now, if I need to leave because I'm not an hourly employee, I'm a salaried employee, I can leave in the middle of my day, go home, change my insulin pump, and then come back. That's a privilege that I have, right? And now knowing about how to navigate the accommodation process so that I can have the accommodations in place, I would say that even that is a privilege of being able to know when you can start that process, how to start that process, and how to do so in such a way to where you won't be met with retaliation, because that, as much as we like to pretend like those things don't happen, they do in the workplace. And so, yeah, that's a hard question to answer. And I think depending on any time you would have asked me over the last 10 years, I would have had a different response. But where I am now, I see that very much being a question of class and privilege. As a person who now has quite a bit of privilege in his career, yeah, taking care of my diabetes and my work life is fairly easy. But when I was first starting out, that was not the case. And now I've been able to navigate that over the course of a long career.
My experience was a little bit different. My first job out of high school, or in high school, I think I worked at a water park in the summers, and then I worked at Little Caesars for a while. And, that's like, those are entry level, a little bit lower than entry level, probably jobs. But I'm not going to say that certain accommodations were made necessarily, like where anybody had to go out of their way. But I was always scared to put that I had a disability on an application, right? Like I wouldn't put it on an application. I wouldn't even mention it in an interview. Then after I got the job, then I'd be like, okay, yeah, just say, I'm diabetic, whatever. This is what you need to do if there's an emergency, whatever. And I remember like working at the water park, I was working at the front, taking people's tickets out in the heat, which we know does crazy things to our blood sugars. And my supervisor, thank God, who was just a really nice person, he took the time to go educate himself a little bit. And so he would come check on me, and he told me that I needed to take regular breaks, go eat as needed. Nobody else was supposed to have their phones or to have like any food or anything on them, but I could. Obviously, if I were to take advantage of that and just be texting on my phone all the time, I'd probably lose that privilege. But if I ever needed to like leave my station to go eat or something, I would text him and let him know. Now, as a salary employee, the difference, I guess, was that I actually put on my application for maybe the second time in my life that I am diabetic prior to the job. And actually I did that because previously when I was in college at a job interview, my blood sugar started dropping in the middle of the interview. And, you just try to pull it through. Like, you don't want to make a big deal. You don't want to start eating a snack. And I mean, I'm sitting there sweating and like shaking. I can't even think right to answer the stupid questions. And so I'm like, I'm so sorry. I got to eat a fruit snack. Like my blood sugar's low. And so I like ripped open the freaking fruit snack and started eating in the middle of the interview, which was so embarrassing. And I didn't have my CGM at the time, so I don't even know what my blood sugar was, but I felt like crap. And so then I was like, okay, maybe I do need to start putting this on applications. That way I'm not in here looking crazy if I get the interview. And I actually got offered the job. And I know that that's not the case for everybody. And a lot of people, and this is why spreading awareness and education about diabetes is so important, because there are plenty of employers and people that think that if you just mark disability on your thing, or if you have diabetes, they don't even know really what diabetes means. Then they think that you're going to be a burden on their business or affect their business in some kind of way. But I do think that it's important to make it known at the beginning, maybe not necessarily at the application process, because I didn't at the beginning, but at some point, because you can't, like Sarah was saying, if you're doing a job where you're moving around a lot, I'm not gonna pass out and go into a coma for you for $7.20. That was what I'm in high school. $7.25 an hour, please. No, I'm out. Bye. So it's just very important to talk about that stuff with your employer.
Something for myself I want to piggyback. Mine's a little different from me, for myself. So I do like marketing and branding and stuff like that, and like kind of like content creation. And so I think my job now, I have like a disability for the first time ever, because one of my jobs that I have previously worked for a shoe company, and I was doing like magazine ads and I was doing commercials and stuff like that. So it's like I didn't want them to come in thinking I have a weakness already, because like with that, like my job, I was legit in charge of like photo shoots, commercials, and sets, whatever. So it's like they're like, okay, this is about an hour. So if you can't get together, I'm like, I didn't want them to be like, okay, he's slowing us down to go drink some juice or whatever. So it took a while for me to be like, hey, I have diabetes, so why didn't you say nothing? And they were cool about it, but it was just that also I was like the only Black person there too as well. So it's like, I'm trying to prove myself, I have diabetes, and then it's just like, I can't let nothing slow me down. So whereas though I didn't put it on my application, then probably like 2 months in after my first photo shoot I did, and it was so intense. I was like nonstop moving around. I was like, this person looked crazy, changed it off and put this on. And it was just like, and I was sweating like bullets. And the lady was like, why are you sweating? And I was like, it's hot in here. She was like, it's not. It was like freezing because all the lights and so I keep it cool. And I was, blood sugar was so damn low. She was like, you gotta relax, you gotta chill, get some food, and just stop for a second. And it just take that moment to like think to yourself, like, no job is worth like going to the hospital and just losing your life for it as well. And like now, I'm highly vocal about it at work now. A lot of folks do know if I be at work now, if my blood sugar is like dropping, they hear that beeping, they're like, hey, let's stop whatever, let's meet later on. I'm like, cool. But there's also a difference of like when you have like that salary and hourly. Like you guys are saying, a lot of hourly jobs are like you are a convenience for them, and then salary is like, we need you. So it's like, yeah, and I think that's a good thing. But it's like we gotta just make it known now. I feel like we gotta stop hiding it in a way. And like, also I hate the word disability for some reason. I feel like when I see an application, whatever, I feel like it label you as like they will just be like you're physically disabled. When I'm like, that's not it. It's like I went to Six Flags last week and they had like ADA parking. So I'm like, oh, I'm parking here. I'm not by the park in the back. If I can park up here. And she's like, we handicap placard. And I was like, do you know everybody who has a disability is not handicapped? And she was like, no, what do you mean? I was like, I'm going to park here. And when I get back, my car better be here. And it was like, again, I felt bad because she was like a young kid. And I was like, they should tell you this stuff as well. But don't let nobody, no job or no company just risk your health and your well-being, because it's definitely not worth it. And don't overwork yourself either, like I was doing. I was trying to prove myself to someone else, and whereas the whole entire time, if I just said things from the beginning, they'd be okay, cool with it.
Well, I want to come in and
I would
say, one, depending upon the kind of job you're applying for, when you get to those questions about disability, race, sexual orientation, they don't get forwarded beyond HR. So again, I just want to say that it doesn't happen for every job, but for some jobs, the person that's interviewing you and the person that will be your manager, they would never see that information. And then the other thing I want to say is, so I've been a professor for 10 years. I just made a transition out of academia last year. I'm in like a year and a half. So it's relatively new, but I went from being in the classroom to now working at home. So like by myself, like we just had one person move to Florida. So I don't even get to see these people. So I'm just like at home. But as a professor, I realized that once I told my students that I have diabetes, which of course at some point I needed to because I had low blood sugar in the middle of a lecture, it freed the space for other students to feel comfortable saying that they also have diabetes. which was really beautiful seeing that happen. I didn't know that that would happen, right? Like, I don't know how the students are gonna perceive me. And then now that I do work from home, I find myself getting caught up in the work and not taking breaks, right? Like, so it's not a class that's here, it's just I'm so wrapped up and engaged. And then it's like, oh, beep, 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 like I need to, check my blood sugar. So I think just in terms of like work environments, it depends on the salary, but also, if you do have people with you, if you do have a break room. I remember I kept juice in the break room and somebody drank my juice, and that's how people at that job knew I had diabetes, because I wasn't telling them, but I had my stash. And then when someone got in my stash when I needed it, we had a problem. So I was just like letting everybody know, that's just not juice. I have diabetes. You're trying. And then, no one confessed, but there was always a 6-pack of apple juice in the refrigerator after that. So you have all these different kinds of accommodations or adjustments depending upon the work environment that you're in the space. But by all means, demand the space that you need, no matter the job or the position. Demand it, because you need it. You come first.
Yeah,
So
I definitely want to echo what Felissa is saying really quickly, because depending on the type of accommodations you need, your jobs can make those. Like, I've seen people request like a small refrigerator to have in their office space so that they can store stuff like insulin or glucagon or juice boxes and things like that. So you do have those options. But then also on the application side, while I will say balance, or depending on what type of field you're working in, balance when you select those boxes. Exactly what she was saying. That information doesn't make it to the hiring managers, but oftentimes what it does do is it pings to us if we have deficiencies in our staff. Like, I get letters on open positions in my department if I have a position that we know that we not have enough African-American women or African-American men in, right? So those application processes, when we fill out those pieces, if we have positions that have not had people from certain backgrounds, it pings to HR that we need to at least review the application for those applicants. Like, I work at a state institution. If someone clicks that they are a state university, if someone clicks that they were in the foster care system or were a veteran or have certain disabilities or African American or other ethnicity, then it pings to me when I get the application. There's a bright bar on my taskbar that says you need to at least review this application. You can't just gloss over it and determine if it's worth. And then there are certain types of fields on there, depending on what you fill out. And sometimes it does apply to disability that even requires them to interview you. And so I've had that happen when I worked in the state of Texas. We had to have an interview with someone based on what they selected on those voluntary answer fields. They were guaranteed an interview, even if they didn't have the minimum qualifications for the position. And so definitely balance when you fill them out, but know that they do guarantee you some rights based on where you live and what the affirmative action laws are for your state.
Good insight for the work aspect. So we're actually going to pivot a little bit back to another question regarding our orgs. So something about D9 is that we all have certain principles that we follow for our organization. And my question is, which principle do you most relate to when it comes to your diabetes? And I can go first. I'll say I feel like I most relate to, I think it's the most important principle of scholarship. And I say that because it is so important to educate people on our diabetes. It's important to show society and, even ourselves sometimes that even though we have we disability ultimately, but we have diabetes, but that doesn't mean diabetes has us. And showing them that we are present and we are here and we are involved in these organizations as a uniform front, as these people who are leaders in the community, and just as these change makers, not only on our campuses, but in our communities. I think that's a big part of being Greek and Black with diabetes.
Well, I can go as I swallow a Pop-Tart. I'm gonna go with service. And for me, I am, old school diabetes advocate, was in this game 12 years ago, before there was Instagram, Twitter, all of that, and a couple of diabetes bloggers, right? So many of us started with blogs. And so I just always saw it as my responsibility through my story of nearly dying, because I was misdiagnosed. I was also misdiagnosed. So I got an MISFED, they missed it totally. And then I got an MIS diagnosis, where I lived 8 years under a type 2 diagnosis, and I have latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. And so for me, I take my life as someone who had a second chance to educate somebody else. So long before there were endorsements, sponsorships for diabetes advocates or patient advocates, I had my blog, Diagnosed Not Defeated. And it was to educate people. Like, I felt like my life, I got a second chance for a purpose, right? For a reason, and to educate other people. So service and giving back is what drives me. No matter where I am in the world, I always come back to my community here in Florida. Now I've circled the world and I'm back home, but no matter where I was, I'll always come back and give a free diabetes workshop to the people in my neighborhood. I grew up in the hood, straight up. And so I know what we don't have. I know that I'm privileged enough to be a global diabetes advocate and get access to information about technology, but my people back home, they don't have it. So for me, it's an honor and a privilege, but some people, it falls under that service thing to do that for them. And I have just always have done that, because we need to know the symptoms of hyperglycemia. If I had known the symptoms, I would not have ended up in DKA and going into a coma and passed out in my bathtub. I would have gone to the doctor and said, these are my symptoms, I need you to check my blood sugar. But I didn't know. And so my hope is that I can at least spare someone the agony that I went through.
When I think about my organization and my diabetes, really the first thing that comes to mind is sisterhood. And that's just really big for me, because diabetes and we boxed often. Like, we did not get along. It was always an issue, a problem. I didn't want it and it didn't want me. Like, I didn't want nothing to do with it. So going to TSU and crossing, Delta Gamma, like, has made my diabetes kind of come full circle. They brought, they made me feel accepted. They made me feel like I'm not a burden or an extra responsibility. They kind of helped me come into acceptance of my diabetes. And there's a lot of other factors that happened into that too. But I would say that Delta played a huge role. And having that sisterhood really made me realize that I need a support group. And fighting diabetes alone is difficult. So when you find like-minded others that are, willing to help you get through this and willing to learn with you through your diabetes, and are also like all of you who are diabetics, like this is a whole, you know, relationship and bond and a support group right there. And I think that's super important in diabetic care because it can be a struggle. You know, a lot of the times people are going based off textbooks, you know, numbers and how things should be. And, you know, they're not putting into other factors like, you know, everybody is stressed in college, or, you know, not just normal stress, you know, food, we're not eating as healthy as we could be in college, you know, it's either cat food or ramen. So I think that just having that core foundation and support network and that sisterhood really drove home diabetes for me and made me become more one with my diabetes.
Do you have anyone else? Do we actually have one of the frats to join in?
I'll also say service, first of all, servants of all, we shall transcend all, of course, is our motto. And also, I would also relate it to brotherhood, fraternity. And the fact that as a diabetic, in the past maybe 3-4 years now, I've been trying to let people know that they don't have to go through this alone. And while I choose not to make diabetes the forefront of everything that I do, just because that's just not my calling right now. I don't have that headspace in this moment. I'm thankful for those that do. I'm immensely thankful for those that do. But when someone reaches out to me and asks a question or needs support, I don't turn them away. There are people who I know need resources, need to know that there are groups and safe spaces for them to have conversations. So we bring them into the fold. There are people who need to know where to look so they can ask questions about resources and how to find that. And I'll take the time to sit down with them. Even just a couple weeks ago, one of my friends has a kid who is a diabetic, and he's 5 years old and was deathly scared of going to school because he was afraid that he might go low and pass out and go into a coma or something. And so even taking the time to just sit down with him as someone who has lived with diabetes for 20 some odd years, just to reassure him that he has a community behind him. And so being willing to be able to help others in the way that they need it and to get them in touch with those resources. But also, I think as I've learned later in life, probably from my mid-20s forward, you don't have to do this alone. There are communities out there that are willing and able to assist you. And even using my own personal experience as someone who has had to lean on the service of others, when I moved to, was it South Carolina or Texas? South Carolina, and was having a hard time trying to find providers. The diabetes community came in huge to help me get Dexcom supplies, pump supplies. Some even forwarded me another medication that I used to help manage my diabetes. And I'm grateful for that. And so I'm thankful for the sort of brotherhood and sisterhood of the diabetes community when you need it as well.
Great insight. And that actually leads into Jamila's question. Are there any diabetes support groups within your organizations? And if I am interpreting this correctly, Jamila, are you asking, do we have support groups among the D9, amongst our own organizations? Or are you saying diabetes groups like DIDs or other patient advocacy groups? And you're free to come off mute. Okay. Amongst our own organizations. So yes, kind of. I think that's a split kind of question. I can start for me personally. I remember when I went to a regional conference not too long ago, and there was just thousands of Zetas there. And we had this platform where we had our schedule and we had different chats. So I made one for diabetes, and we would just all connect there and let each other know, like, oh, there's this in this exhibit hall, this has this many carbs, and just kind of connect during the conference and then also afterwards. And then there's also different social media pages where we can go sometimes. Can't really think of them off the bat, but you find sorors or fraternity brothers. But I think within our organization as a whole, rather than support groups, sometimes we'll have initiatives. So we'll have different programs and we'll have different areas that we'll want to focus on. So we might do something on breast cancer, or we might do something on education. That months like this, we might do something on diabetes. And that's when it's a time for even our sorors without diabetes to come together to do service together and learn about the sorors with it. Or vice versa, the ones who don't know who know that they have it, but they don't know their other sisters have it, they can come together and communicate. But officially, not really. It's more of a thing, kind of like what we tell anyone when we join our orgs, it's what you make of it. So if you get in it and you want to build that community and you want to see, you know, who else is here, who else am I going to find support with, that is a very good way to start. But it's also almost kind of like we were talking about the workplace earlier, we can tie it in a little bit here. We're not going to weed you out because you have diabetes or you have a disability. We're looking way more than that. So if that's something that you learn afterwards, that's when we would see that more on our own. Anyone else is free to add, but if not, I have two more questions for you all. And the first one is, what barriers did diabetes bring that you feel that Greek life helped you overcome?
I'll go first. I think for myself, it was something I learned just in Greek life in general is like, you have like this voice basically, so let that voice be like heard in a way. So whereas though I think that one thing that like my prophytes and just the people in my frat just told me, like, you have like a mission basically. So if speak upon it, be loud, like be vocal, don't let like things like hold you back, or just basically you gotta say what you gotta say. Say what you gotta say, because someone else may have that same question not speaking up. So just say it, and you will help somebody eventually.
I think I've been saying this the whole entire time, but my diabetes and I, like, we didn't get along, no acceptance, and really going through my experience crossing had taught me to accept my diabetes, that, you know, diabetes is a part of me, but it doesn't have to be who I am, if that makes sense. Like, you know, it's not everything about me. I have a lot of different layers other than being a diabetic, but it is still something that is an important aspect for me. So I think I came to really kind of wear my diabetes on my sleeve a little bit more than I would have in my previous life before I crossed. And I would also say, kind of similar to what you're talking about, you know, I have a voice, speak up, say something, because my experiences may help somebody else. So I've learned to just kind of just shine a little bit brighter with my diabetes after I crossed. And on top of that, just the whole sisterhood thing, like my sisters really helped me a lot when it comes to my acceptance. And I don't even think they realize half that they did for me in that aspect, because I would not be the same diabetic I am today without them.
I think I'll actually slip in behind Anisha, because I completely agree. And I remember when I joined, one thing that I can still hear today is that you don't know how much you can be stretched until you join Greek life. And that is so true. You don't know how you can multitask. You don't know how you're going to join this org, how you're going to manage, how you're going to keep your grades up, how you're going to keep work up, how you're going to keep everything at bay and still get enough bottles of water in the day. So I think Greek life and diabetes has shown me how to take more of that and that responsibility, because no one is going to do it for you. You want to join these orgs, you have to step up to the plate and show up, be and show your interest. What you want to succeed at your diabetes, you have to step up to the plate. You have to show your interest. You have to put the work forth. You have to speak up, just like Don was saying, or else no one's going to feel when you're low. They're not going to know when you're high. You have to take care of your own needs before anyone else can. Because when you take care of yourself, that's going to teach others, okay, how can I help this person? How can I take care of them as well? So I definitely think Greek life helped me multitask, balance, which is a huge part of diabetes.
I'll follow up behind that. I definitely agree. The balancing part. I was an athlete in high school, and then in college, I played intramural sports, and I worked out occasionally. But with those things, it's a choice. I mean, everything's a choice. But I could get up one day and be like, I don't feel like going to the gym. But whenever I joined Sigma Gamma Sorority Incorporated, I guess technically I had a choice, but I really didn't have a choice. I had to show up. I was doing 2 internships, I had 2 jobs, and I had class, and I was a part of this organization. And I was like, dang, I can't even make excuses anymore, because now I have all my sisters holding me accountable. And it really just helped me as far as my diabetes too, because I was so used to playing things safe, in high school, because I didn't really check my blood sugars like I was supposed to. So I had a regular pattern. I would go to class, I would go to track practice, then I would go home, take a shower, eat, go to sleep. Everything was predictable. And so I kind of I just got so used to being in that comfort zone. Whereas whenever you, especially when you're in the pledging process, it's not predictable. And then with school and work and assignments, all that stuff, it's just chaotic. I think I'm convinced, I haven't ever been pregnant yet, but I'm convinced college is the worst mental part of your life. It's so stressful. You don't know what's happening. You don't even really know who you are yet. But anyway, to bring it back, definitely it helped me learn how to balance and to have more faith in myself, because somehow I did it. I look back and I don't know how I did it, but I did. And so I'm just super grateful that I had the opportunity, because everybody doesn't get the opportunity to be a part of a Greek organization either. So I'm just super grateful for the opportunity.
Great. And we are actually going to start wrapping things up. But for the last question that I did promise, I want you all to give me maybe a 1 to 2 liner, each of you, of what recommendation would you give someone who's interested in Greek life with diabetes?
Can I go?
Go ahead.
Don't let it stop you. That's it.
Yep. All right, Cameron?
I would say the exact same thing. Don't let it be the barrier to your success.
I'm gonna piggyback off of that. Yeah, because at the end of the day, Greek life or not, you gotta put yourself first. So don't let you being in Greek life or you being into anything like that stop you from taking care of yourself, because we have one of the top killing diseases. So it doesn't matter if you're in Greek life, anything like that, you have to put yourself first and make sure, you take care of yourself. Because like I said, for me, I wasn't really compliant. So I had to suffer from that last year. Another story for another time. But at the end of the day, like I said, just put yourself first.
I'm kind of filled with one-liners, or be the face for the next person. Cause not always, but I've used diabetes as my advantage to be on a lot of platforms. Like, you're a diabetic, you want to come speak for us? Sure. Class, we're gonna stop and listen to her because she has diabetes. Big bets. Now you get to show off your org and you get to show off your disability that is not. So be the face for the next person, and you might, or someone else might be prepared to just be the face for the next person, because someone else is going to come in and say, you did it, well, I'm a diabetic too, and I'm going to do it. And I just like being the face of things, because why not?
Hey, Felissa?
I would say that the members of the organization and your intake members who are going through intake with you want to see you succeed. So please tell them what accommodations you need.
All right, Anisha?
I would say don't let diabetes stop you from taking risk, because when you take risks, you get rewards.
All right, Don?
I would say, man, this is like a really tough question. And I would say, just do it. You got it. Like, just do it. Don't let nothing stop you. Don't let your disability basically stop you in a way, because it's how you control it basically. So just push through.
And Lexi?
Kind of piggybacking off of everybody else, but don't let diabetes be the final factor in making your decision to join a Greek organization, because that should be something that you have in the back of your mind, I guess, and make sure you bring it up. But like, don't let that have any bearance on which organization you decide to join, and if you decide to, show interest into an organization.
And I'll end with myself and just say diabetes is a puzzle piece to your full identity. Greek life is a puzzle piece to our full identity. These are pieces of you that do not make up who you are as a whole. So just as long as you stay who you are, and especially when you're choosing Greek life, you pick the org not based on, what's popular or what everyone else is running toward, but the people that you feel like family with, and who you'll be comfortable sharing this information with. That's where you're going to be the most happy. And where you're the most happy, you're going to be successful. So always strive for the best, and just remember to have fun and breathe, because we'll still be here, but we want to make sure you're okay.
Well, thank y'all so much. This has been an amazing conversation. The last session we talked briefly about like spontaneity with diabetes, and just how I can't remember who said it, but they're like, I don't know how I got through it, but I did. And just hearing like y'all's experiences and just being reminded that like, yeah, diabetes can be hectic at times, but like we're still going to get through it, and we just have to find that support system, and we have to be the voice for ourselves, because no one else is going to do it. So that's really been the theme I've felt throughout this whole session. And I love that affirmation so much. So thank you all for this conversation. The last session for the last day is about to start. So take a break, stretch, get some water, and join us for the mental health and stigma in diabetes. And yeah, thank you all so much for everyone who's on this panel.
Before we drop off, all panelists and also participants, if you're Greek, I would like to get a quick picture. So if you could turn on your cameras, get ready. That would be awesome.
I will turn mine off.
Right. And feel free to like throw up signs, it doesn't matter. I already knew that was gonna happen for the alphas, but yes. All right, y'all ready? Perfect.
That was such a good idea, Shay. All right, well, I'm gonna end the session. Thank y'all so much for this. Have a good one.
Y'all too.
Bye.
Y'all did amazing. I love it.